What happens when the ultimate disruptor gets handed the ultimate legitimizer? Picture this. It's October in Oslo. It's freezing outside, but the streets? The streets are absolutely on fire. We're talking thousands of people screaming, SWAT teams everywhere, absolute scenes. It looks like a war zone. But inside the city hall? You could hear a pin drop. The air is so thick with tension you could cut it with a knife. The global elite are sitting there in their tuxedos sweating bullets. They look like they're watching a car crash in slow motion. And then, the doors open. He walks up to the podium. No tweets. No rallies. No MAGA hat. Just the former president, and maybe the future one, accepting the Nobel Peace Prize. The moment that metal touches his hand, the internet doesn't just break, it melts down. Twitter? Gone. The news anchors? They're stuttering, malfunction on live TV like NPCs who lost their script. This isn't just an award ceremony. This is a glitch in the simulation. Most people think the Nobel Prize is just a shiny gold coin and a handshake. They think it's a victory lap. They are dead wrong. If this happens, it isn't the end of the story. It is the trigger for a chain reaction that nobody, and I mean nobody, is talking about. We aren't talking about an ego boost. We are talking about a total geopolitical reset that forces China, Russia, and the Middle East to completely rewrite their playbooks overnight. We're about to dive into the scary reality of what happens the day after the ceremony. Because once that medal is around his neck, the rules of the game don't just change, they disappear. So how did we get here? How does the guy who the media painted as a chaotic villain end up with the same award as Mother Teresa? To understand the explosion, you have to look at the fuse. And the fuse was lit years ago, in a room where the cameras weren't focused. Here's the thing. For decades, the smart money, in Washington, the Ivy League experts, the career diplomats, the guys with the fancy degrees, they all said the same thing. They told us, you cannot have peace in the Middle East until you solve the Israel-Palestine problem first. That was the golden rule. That was the law. Then Trump walks in, looks at the rulebook, and basically throws it in the trash. He said, nah, we're doing it backward. He went for the Abraham Accords. He got Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco to sign on the dotted line. It was the biggest diplomatic breakthrough in 25 years. But here is where the story gets weird. The media? They barely covered it. It was a blip. If a Democrat had done that, they'd be carving their face onto Mount Rushmore by the afternoon. But because it was Trump, the narrative machine tried to bury it. They tried to pretend it didn't matter. But facts are stubborn things. While the pundits were yapping, the Middle East was changing. Trade opened up. Intelligence sharing started. The anti-Iran coalition became real. So why bring this up now? Because the Nobel Committee is political, sure. But they aren't blind. They see the writing on the wall. They know that the old way of doing things is dead. Giving Trump the prize isn't an endorsement of his tweets. It's an admission that the establishment failed, and the disruptor succeeded. And that admission? It terrifies them. Because if Trump is validated by the highest honor on earth, it strips away the single biggest weapon his opponents have, the idea that he is dangerous and unstable. You can call a guy unstable all you want. But it's really hard to make that stick when he's got a Nobel Peace Prize sitting on his desk. But that's just the surface level. That's just the PR battle. What happens behind closed doors is way, way darker. Let's talk about political capital. In D.C., political capital is like ammo. You use it to pass laws, intimidate rivals, and survive scandals. Usually, a former president has zero ammo. They go paint pictures, write books, and fade away. But Trump? He's been hoarding ammo. Now, imagine dropping a nuclear bomb of legitimacy into that stockpile. That's what the Nobel is. The second the news breaks, the domestic narrative in the United States fractures. Think about the psychological impact. For 6, 7 years, half the country has been told that this man is the antithesis of peace, that he is a warmonger in waiting. When the Nobel Committee, a group of Europeans, mind you, not MAGA voters, hands him that medal, it creates a cognitive dissonance event. It breaks the brain of the opposition. You can't scream, "He's a monster," while the world applauds his peacemaking. It doesn't compute. This forces the media to do one of two things. One, they have to attack the Nobel Committee itself. They have to burn down the credibility of the institution they've worshipped for decades. Or two, they have to admit he did something right. And they won't do number two. So, we are going to see a scorched earth campaign against the concept of peace itself. It sounds crazy, right? But watch. They will say the peace is fake. They will say the deals are transactional. They will try to redefine what peace means just to avoid giving him credit. But here is the kicker. Here is why this is dangerous for the establishment. The average person? The normie who doesn't live on Twitter? They see the headline, "Trump wins Nobel." And they think, maybe he wasn't that bad. That shift, that tiny 5% shift in perception, is an electoral landslide. It validates the America First foreign policy as not just a slogan, but a proven strategy. It tells the voters, the experts lied to you. The chaos wasn't chaos. It was leverage. And once the voters believe that, the old guard is finished. They lose their monopoly on truth. But if you think the reaction in Washington is going to be wild, wait until you see what happens in Beijing and Moscow. Because this is where the stakes go from political drama to global survival. Foreign policy is a game of poker. It's all about reading the other guy across the table. Right now, guys like Putin and Xi Jinping look at the West and they see weakness. They see indecision. They see bureaucracy. But Trump with a Nobel Prize? That's a wild card they don't know how to play against. Why? Because the Nobel validates the method. Trump's method was simple, transactional diplomacy. I don't care about your human rights record. I don't care about your government structure. I care about the deal. Do we have a deal, or do I crush your economy? It's brutal. It's simple. And it works. When the world gives him a medal for that, it signals to every dictator on the planet that the rules of engagement have shifted back to realpolitik. For Xi Jinping in China, this is a nightmare. China thrives on the West being bogged down in moralizing and endless committees. They love it when we argue with ourselves. But a Nobel-validated Trump represents a West that is focused on results, not process. It means the united front against China becomes much easier to build. Why? Because other countries see that siding with the U.S. yields actual results, peace deals, trade deals, medals, not just lectures. And then, there's the Ukraine situation. If Trump has the mandate of a Peace Prize winner, he has the political cover to force a deal that nobody else could get away with. He could walk into a room with Putin and Zelensky and say, "The party is over. Here are the lines. Stop shooting or I cut off the money, for one, and crash the oil prices for the other." Without the prize, the media calls that appeasement. With the prize, they have to call it Nobel-winning conflict resolution. See the difference? It's all about the frame. And the Nobel Prize is the most expensive, shiny, golden frame in the world. But there is a trap here. A massive, gaping trap that almost everyone is missing. Because when you reach the top of the mountain, the wind blows the hardest. By validating Trump, the system might be accidentally creating the one thing they fear most, a leader who feels completely invincible. And an invincible leader starts taking risks that no normal politician would ever touch. We're about to walk through the domino effect of the post-Nobel world. And the first domino to fall isn't in Europe. It isn't in Asia. It's right in the heart of the American economy. You think the political fallout is crazy? Wait until you see what the Nobel bump does to the global markets. Because there is a specific sector of the economy that is about to get wiped out if this happens, and another sector that is going to the moon. And if you're not positioned for it, you're going to get left behind. We need to talk about the peace dividend and why the military-industrial complex is already plotting to stop this from happening at any cost. Peace dividend. It sounds nice, doesn't it? It sounds like extra money in your pocket, like lower taxes, like safety. But to the biggest industry in Washington, D.C., that phrase is a slur. To the military-industrial complex, peace dividend means bankruptcy. Here is the uncomfortable truth that nobody on cable news will tell you. War is a business model. And right now, business is booming. We are sending billions of dollars in equipment to Ukraine, to the Middle East, to bases all over the Pacific. That money doesn't just vanish. It goes into the pockets of defense contractors, lobbyists, and the politicians they fund. It is a circular economy of destruction. Now, imagine Trump walks onto that stage in Oslo. He accepts the Nobel Peace Prize for ending the forever wars. In the boardrooms of Northern Virginia, the panic sets in. Because the Nobel Prize legitimizes de-escalation. If the President of the United States is globally recognized as a peacemaker, it becomes politically impossible to sell the next war. You can't manufacture consent for a new invasion when the commander-in-chief is holding the ultimate symbol of peace. And that is where the danger zone begins. History tells us a very dark story about what happens when presidents try to stop the war machine. Eisenhower warned us about it. JFK tried to shatter it. Trump is trying to starve it. If the Nobel creates a peace momentum, where the public starts demanding diplomatic solutions instead of military ones, the blob, that's the permanent foreign policy establishment, will not go down without a fight. We will see an unprecedented wave of sabotage. They will leak intelligence to embarrass him. They will try to bait him into a conflict. They might even stage false flag events to force his hand. The goal? To prove the Nobel Committee wrong. To prove that peace is impossible and that war is inevitable. This is the internal civil war that happens the day after the ceremony. It's the elected government versus the permanent bureaucracy. But while the elites are fighting over contracts and influence, something much deeper is happening to the American soul. Something that changes the culture forever. Let's step away from the tanks and missiles for a second. Let's talk about the culture. For 8 years, the cultural elite, Hollywood, academia, the mainstream media, have built their entire identity around one pillar. Orange man bad? It's not just a slogan, it's a religion. They truly believe he is the avatar of chaos, racism, and destruction. So what happens when the avatar of chaos is crowned the king of peace? It creates a cultural short circuit. If Trump wins the Nobel, it invalidates the moral high ground of the left. You can't lecture people about being on the right side of history when history just handed your opponent a gold medal. This triggers what sociologists call a legitimacy crisis for the cultural gatekeepers. Suddenly, the university professor looks ridiculous claiming Trump is literally Hitler. The late-night host looks insane claiming Trump is trying to start WWI. Their audience starts to tune out. They realize they've been sold a caricature, not reality. This is the cultural exorcism. It breaks the spell. For the average American, this is a breath of fresh air. It signals that we can stop living in a state of constant hysteria. If the world says, "Hey, this guy actually did a good job keeping the peace," it gives permission for regular people to stop fighting over politics at Thanksgiving dinner. It lowers the temperature. But here is the twist. While it calms the center, it radicalizes the fringes. There is a segment of the population that needs Trump to be the villain. Without a villain, their worldview collapses. So, when the Nobel legitimizes him, they won't accept it. They will detach from reality completely. We will see the rise of a anti-peace movement. People protesting against peace deals just because Trump signed them. It sounds insane, but we've already seen glimpses of it. And this cultural split leads us directly into the most important consequence of all. The one that affects your wallet, your future, and your children. The Golden Age prophecy. There is a theory in economics called confidence intervals. Markets run on vibes. They run on feelings. If investors feel like the world is about to burn down, they hoard cash and gold. They don't build factories. They don't hire people. But if they believe that a Pax Americana, an American peace, is secured, the money floodgates open. A Nobel Prize for Trump signals stability. It tells the global markets that the shipping lanes will stay open, that the oil will keep flowing, that no nukes are going to fly. This triggers a massive inflow of capital back into the United States. We're talking about a boom that could rival the 1990s or the 1950s. But, pause, there is always a but. This brings us to the great filter. History shows that empires are most vulnerable right when they think they've won. Rome fell after it conquered the known world. The British Empire crumbled after victory in World War I. Why? Because success breeds complacency. If Trump secures this peace and wins this prize, the United States faces a choice. Door number 1, we use this peace to rebuild. We fix our bridges, we bring manufacturing home, we secure our borders, and we pay down our debt. We use the peace dividend to harden the country for the future. Or door number 2, we get lazy. We think the danger is over. We let the military atrophy. We print more money because times are good, and we ignore the silent threats growing in the shadows, like cyber warfare and AI. While we are celebrating the Peace Prize, our enemies are moving to the digital front. China knows they can't beat a Nobel-winning Trump in a trade war or a hot war. So they will shift 100% of their focus to internal destabilization, cyber attacks, grid shutdowns, biological threats. The prize makes us safe from missiles, but it might make us blind to the malware. And that brings me to the final, terrifying realization. The realization that changes how you should look at the news for the next 12 months. The Nobel Peace Prize is just a piece of metal. It's gold, it's heavy, it sits on a shelf. But as a symbol, it is a turning point. It represents the moment the 21st century actually begins. The moment we finally move past the post-9/11 era of endless war and fear. But moving forward is scary. Most people say they want change. But when change actually happens, when the script gets flipped and the bad guy becomes the peacemaker, most people panic. You are going to see panic in the news. You are going to see panic in the markets. You are going to see your friends and family reacting emotionally to things they don't understand. Your job? Your job is to see the signal through the noise. Don't watch what the pundits say about the metal. Watch what Putin does the next day. Watch the price of oil. Watch the trade deals. The prize is the distraction. The power shift is the reality. We are entering a period of high-stakes poker where the U.S. finally holds the royal flush. The question is, will we play the hand correctly? Or will the internal sabotage fold the game before we can collect the chips? One thing is certain. If that medal is placed around his neck, the world you knew yesterday is gone. The old guard is dead. The new era is here. And if you think the deep state is going to let that happen without unleashing their final weapon, you haven't been paying attention. Because there is one agency, one specific group of people, who lose everything if this peace becomes real. And they have a contingency plan that is already in motion. I mentioned the sabotage. I mentioned the group that is plotting in the shadows right now because they cannot afford for peace to happen. You need to know who they are. You need to know about the intelligence trap that is being set for the next administration. I did a deep dive into the specific agency that is currently going rogue to protect the forever war. It's worse than you think, and the documents are public if you know where to look. I'll see you in there.